The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep rumble. Kethvar walked slowly across the polished floor, his purple skin pale with worry. His forearms carried data tablets and holographic projectors. He had requested this emergency meeting 3 times before the council finally agreed to see him. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 50 different alien species sat in their assigned seats. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had scales, or fur or skin that changed colors, but all of them looked annoyed that their busy schedules had been interrupted. "Scientist Kethvar," said Council Leader Vextol, his voice booming through the chamber. His species was tall and thin, with skin like silver metal. "You have 5 minutes to present your findings. Make them count." Kethvar activated his holographic display. A small blue planet appeared floating above the center of the chamber. It looked peaceful, with white clouds swirling over green and brown land masses. "This is Earth," Kethvar began, his voice shaking slightly. "The 3rd planet in the Sol system. For the past year I have been studying the dominant species there. They call themselves humans." A few council members laughed. Councilor Zephyra, whose species looked like giant insects, clicked her mandibles in amusement. "Those primitive creatures? They barely have spaceflight. They still use chemical rockets." "That is exactly what makes them dangerous," Kethvar said urgently. He pressed a button, and the hologram changed to show human cities. "Look closer at their history. In just the last 100 of their years, they went from riding animals to splitting atoms, from simple flying machines to landing on their moon." The chamber grew quieter. Some council members leaned forward to get a better look at the images. Kethvar continued, "But that is not the most concerning part. I have studied their genetic code. I have analyzed their brain patterns. I have watched recordings of their conflicts." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "These beings are not just smart. They are adaptive in ways we have never seen before." The hologram showed scenes from human history, battles, inventions, cities rising from nothing. The humans seemed to learn and change at incredible speed. "Every time they face a new challenge, they find a way to overcome it," Kethvar explained. "When they fight each other, the losing side studies the winners and becomes stronger. When they face natural disasters, they build better shelters. When they get sick, they create medicine. They never stay defeated." Council Leader Vextol waved a dismissive hand. "So they are survivors. Many species are survivors. That does not make them a threat to the Galactic Consortium." "You are not listening." Kethvar's voice cracked with desperation. "I have run computer simulations. If we attack Earth, if we threaten these humans, they will not simply defend themselves. They will learn from our attacks. They will study our technology. They will adapt and become stronger than us." The chamber erupted in laughter. Councilor Marbeth, whose species had conquered 12 worlds, slapped his knee with his massive hand. "You want us to be afraid of a species that has not even left their own solar system? They have no energy weapons, no force shields, no faster-than-light travel. They do not need those things yet," Kethvar said quietly. "But if we give them a reason to develop them, they will. And they will do it faster than we think possible." The hologram changed again, showing detailed genetic analyses and brain scans. "Look at their DNA. They have genes that activate under stress. Genes that make them stronger, faster, smarter when they are threatened. Most species have this to some degree, but humans..." He paused. "In humans, this response is 10 times stronger than in any other species we have studied." Council Leader Vextol stood up, his silver skin reflecting the light from the hologram. "Enough of this foolishness. The humans have resources we need. Their planet has rare minerals. Their population can provide workers for our mining operations. Operation Harvest will proceed as planned." "No!" Kethvar dropped his data tablets. They clattered loudly on the floor. "You must not attack them. We should contact them peacefully, trade with them, learn from them. But if you attack their homeworld, if you threaten their families, you will awaken something that should stay sleeping." The other council members were already standing up, preparing to leave. The decision had been made long before this meeting. Kethvar's warnings were just a formality they had to endure. The invasion fleet launches in 2 days, Vextal announced. 1,000 ships, the largest force the consortium has ever assembled. These humans will surrender quickly when they see our power. As the council members filed out of the chamber, chatting among themselves about mining quotas and profit margins, Kethavar remained alone. He stared at the hologram of Earth, still rotating slowly in the empty air. He had done everything he could. He had shown them the data, explained the danger, begged them to reconsider. But they would not listen. They saw only a primitive world full of resources, not a sleeping giant that would wake up angry. Kethavar gathered his scattered tablets with shaking hands. In 2 days, the consortium would make the biggest mistake in galactic history, and he would be the only one who saw it coming. The hologram flickered and died, leaving the chamber in darkness. The stars around Earth suddenly filled with massive alien ships. Admiral Zeftos stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. Behind him, 1,000 consortium vessels hung in space like a dark cloud, their weapons charged and ready. "Begin the demonstration," Zeftos ordered, his voice calm and confident. He had conquered 7 worlds using the same strategy. Show overwhelming force first, then offer surrender terms. Most species gave up immediately when they realized how outmatched they were. The first wave of energy beams lanced down from orbit. Bright green fire struck the largest human cities. Buildings that had stood for centuries turned to dust in seconds. The alien weapons were designed to destroy but not kill too many people. Dead workers were useless for mining operations. "Excellent," Zeftos said, watching the explosions bloom across Earth's surface. "Now we wait for their surrender transmission. Most species send it within an hour." But something strange was happening on the communication channels. Instead of panic or pleas for mercy, the humans were talking to each other in rapid, organized bursts. Their radio signals were not collapsing under the attack. They were multiplying. "Sir," called Lieutenant Morketh from the communication station, "the humans are broadcasting on thousands of frequencies. They appear to be coordinating some kind of response." Zeftos frowned. "Response? What kind of response could they possibly have? They have no space fleet, no orbital defenses. On the planet below, the humans were indeed responding, but not in any way the aliens expected. In underground bunkers and hidden facilities, human scientists were already studying the energy signatures of the alien weapons. Military leaders were analyzing the attack patterns. Engineers were taking apart pieces of alien technology that had fallen from damaged ships. Dr. Minho Park stared at his computer screen in a Seoul research facility, his hands flying over the keyboard. "The energy frequency is 7.2 terahertz, he called out to his team. "It's some kind of focused plasma beam. We can replicate this." Across the world, similar scenes were playing out. In New York, physicist Dr. So-Young Kim was reverse engineering alien shield technology from wreckage that had crashed in Central Park. In London, engineer Jae-Min Lee was figuring out how to adapt human jet engines to work with captured alien power cells. The humans were not running or hiding. They were learning. "Admiral," the communications officer said, his voice uncertain, "we're detecting unusual activity at human military bases. They appear to be modifying their aircraft." Zeftos walked to the sensor station and looked at the readings. What he saw made no sense. The primitive human flying machines were being changed, upgraded with technology that looked almost familiar. "That's impossible," he muttered. "They can't understand our technology. They're centuries behind us." But 12 hours later, the first modified human fighter appeared on the alien sensors. It was still basically a human jet, but it had energy, shields flickering around its hull. The shields were crude, unstable, but they were definitely based on consortium technology. "How did they do that so fast?" Zeftos demanded. His science officer, a tall being with gray skin and large eyes, studied the readings carefully. "Admiral, it appears the humans have an unusual ability to analyze and copy new technology. They took apart our weapon fragments and learned how they work. More human fighters began appearing. Each one was better than the last. The humans were not just copying alien technology, they were improving it. Their shields were becoming more stable. Their weapons were getting more powerful. Kethvar, watching from his science vessel at the edge of the fleet, felt sick. Everything he had warned about was coming true. The humans were adapting exactly as his research had predicted. "Admiral," called the tactical officer, his voice tight with worry. "The human aircraft are approaching our outer ships. They're moving in coordinated attack formations." The first human fighters struck the consortium scout ships with surprising effectiveness. Their weapons, hastily built from alien technology, punched through shields that should have protected against anything the humans could build. But that was not the worst part. As the battle continued, the human tactics kept changing. Each wave of fighters flew differently than the last. They were learning from every exchange, adapting their strategies in real time. "They're studying us," Kethvar whispered to himself as he watched the tactical display. "Every time we fire, every time we move, they're learning how we fight." Within 24 hours of the first attack, human forces were launching coordinated strikes against consortium ships across the solar system. Their vessels were still primitive by alien standards, but they were crewed by beings who refused to give up, who learned from every defeat and came back stronger. "Sir," the communications officer reported, his voice shaking, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet. It's in our language." "What?" Zeftos spun around. "That's impossible. They don't know our language." "They do now, sir. The message is simple. They want to know who gave the order to attack their world." The transmission came through the ship's speakers, spoken in perfect consortium dialect by a calm human voice. "This is Earth Defense Command. We know you can hear us. We know you're watching. We want to talk to whoever decided to attack our home." Zeftos felt a chill run through his body. In less than 2 days, the humans had gone from helpless victims to dangerous opponents. And they were just getting started. The awakening was complete. Now the real war would begin. 3 months had passed since the first attack on Earth, and Admiral Zeftos no longer felt like a conqueror. He felt like prey being hunted by invisible predators. His once mighty fleet of 1,000 ships had been reduced to less than 300, scattered across 4 different star systems. The humans had not just defended their world, they had followed the aliens into space. "Another distress signal, Admiral," reported Communications Officer Tekler, his voice barely above a whisper. The entire bridge crew had learned to speak quietly, as if loud voices might somehow attract the human hunters. "Where this time?" Zeftos asked wearily. "The Chronos system. Scout Group Delta went silent 6 hours ago. Before we lost contact, they reported human ships approaching their position." Zeftos closed his eyes. Scout Group Delta had been 5 of his best ships, equipped with the most advanced stealth technology the consortium possessed. If the humans could find and destroy them, nowhere was safe. "How are they doing this?" he muttered to himself. "How are they tracking us across light years of space?" The answer came from Dr. Yun Seo, a human scientist whose voice had become familiar to every surviving consortium crew member. Her transmissions appeared on their communication channels no matter how often they changed frequencies or encryption codes. "Admiral Zeftos," her calm voice filled the bridge. "This is Dr. Yun Seo of the Earth Defense Research Division. We know you're listening. We want you to understand what you've done to us." The Admiral wanted to turn off the transmission, but he found himself frozen, listening despite his fear. "You attacked our homes. You killed our families. You forced us to become something we never wanted to be." Her voice remained steady, but there was something underneath it that made seasoned warriors shiver. "We were farmers and teachers and artists. We built things. We created beauty. You turned us into hunters." On the main screen, tactical displays showed the locations of surviving consortium ships. Each one was marked in blue, but surrounding them were red dots representing human forces. The humans seemed to be everywhere at once. Kethvar, still aboard his research vessel, had been monitoring human communications for weeks. What he discovered terrified him more than any weapon. The humans were not just hunting randomly. They were learning everything about their enemies. "Admiral," he transmitted to the flagship, "you need to see what the humans are doing. They've captured 17 of our crew members from destroyed ships. They're not killing them. They're studying Them. The transmission that followed made everyone on the bridge wish they had never heard of Earth. It was a recording of a human interrogation session, conducted in perfect consortium language. A human voice, patient and methodical, was asking detailed questions about ship designs, weapon systems, and military tactics. The captured alien was answering everything, not because he was being tortured, but because the humans had somehow convinced him that cooperation was his only chance of survival. They know how we think now, Kethvar continued. They know our weaknesses, our fears, our standard battle formations. Every ship they destroy teaches them something new. As if to prove his point, long-range sensors detected human vessels approaching from 3 different directions. But these were not the crude modified ships from the early days of the conflict. These were sleek, deadly craft that moved through space with predatory grace. Those ships, whispered the sensor operator. They're using our own technology, but improved somehow. Their energy signatures are more efficient than our own designs. The human fleet attacked with surgical precision. They did not waste shots or make random moves. Every action was calculated, planned, perfect. The consortium ships tried to retreat, but the humans had predicted their escape routes. They're not just hunting us, Zeftos realized with growing horror. They're hurting us. Dr. Yunseo's voice came through the communications again. We've been studying your species for 93 days now. We know how you make decisions. We know how you react under pressure. We know exactly what you will do before you do it. The Admiral watched helplessly as human ships systematically destroyed his escort vessels. Each attack was more efficient than the last. The humans were getting better at killing with every passing moment. Sir, called the navigation officer. Incoming. Transmission from the Vega system. It's Commander Loxtar. The message was brief and desperate. They found us. I don't know how, but they found us. The humans are here. They're not just attacking our ships, they're taking apart our technology while we're still alive to see it. They want us to watch them learn. The transmission ended in static. Kethavar's research vessel shuddered as human fighters passed nearby, but they did not attack. They were letting him live, he realized. They wanted him to see what was happening. They wanted him to carry the message of what they had become. Admiral, came another report. Human forces have surrounded the refugee convoy in the Altair system. They're demanding surrender, but not for the usual reasons. They want to study how our evacuation procedures work. Zeftos slumped in his command chair, finally understanding what they were facing. The humans were not just winning the war. They were turning it into a learning experience. Every battle taught them something new about their enemies. Every victory made them stronger and smarter. The hunters had become the hunted, and their predators were becoming more perfect with each passing day. Set course for deep space, he ordered quietly. Maybe if we run far enough, fast enough, they'll lose interest. But even as he spoke, he knew it was hopeless. The humans would follow them to the edge of the galaxy if necessary. They had all the time in the universe to perfect their hunt. The sky above Vextra Prime burned orange and red as human ships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars. Kethvar pressed himself against the reinforced window of his underground bunker, watching the end of his civilization unfold above him. 6 months ago, Vextra Prime had been the crown jewel of the Galactic Consortium. 50 billion beings lived in its crystal cities, protected by orbital defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets. Now those same platforms lay in twisted wreckage, and the crystal spires were melting under human plasma fire. How did it happen so fast? Whispered Dr. Nexara, the only other survivor in the research bunker. Her tentacles trembled as she monitored the final communications from the planet's defenders. Kethavar did not answer because he knew exactly how it had happened. The humans had learned everything. Every battle, every retreat, every desperate last stand had taught them something new about consortium technology, tactics, and psychology. They had become perfect predators. Through his instruments, Kethvar could see human ground forces moving through the city above. They moved with mechanical precision, but there was nothing cold or emotionless about their actions. These were beings driven by a terrible purpose, carrying out the complete destruction of everything that had threatened their home world. The humans no longer used crude modifications of alien technology. Their weapons were elegant, efficient, and terrifyingly advanced. In 6 months, they had surpassed 1,000 years of consortium scientific development. "Sir," came a weak transmission from the planet's Surface Defense Center. "The humans are not just destroying our equipment. They're taking it apart, studying it, then building better versions on the spot. They've turned our own factories against us." Kethavar watched through long-range cameras as human engineers worked with impossible speed to convert consortium manufacturing plants. Within hours, the same facilities that had built alien weapons were producing human versions that were smaller, more powerful, and more reliable. "They're not just winning," he said quietly. "They're upgrading themselves in real time." The bunker's emergency systems crackled to life, and a calm human voice filled the chamber. The voice belonged to Commander Dongwu, whose name had become legend among the surviving consortium forces. "Attention all remaining consortium personnel on Vextra Prime. This is Commander Dongwu of the Earth Defense Force. Your resistance is over. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. Your fleet is scattered. Your government has fallen." Dr. Nexara made a choking sound. The consortium government had ruled the galaxy for over a millennium. It could not simply be gone. "We have studied your records," the human voice continued. "We know about every world you have conquered, every species you have enslaved, every civilization you have destroyed. We know about the scientist Kethavar, who tried to warn your leaders about attacking Earth." Kethavar felt his 4 hearts skip a beat. How did they know about him? "Kethavar of Research Division 73, if you are listening, you have 1 hour to present yourself at Central Plaza. Come alone and unarmed. You will not be harmed. We have questions about your people's decision-making process." The transmission ended, leaving the bunker in terrible silence. "You cannot go," Dr. Nexara said frantically. "They will kill you, or worse. They will study you like we used to study primitive species." But Kethavar was already gathering his research notes. Through the bunker's periscope, he could see human soldiers in the plaza above. They wore armor that seemed to shift and change, adapting to different threats in real time. Their weapons hummed with energy frequencies he did not recognize. These were no longer the primitive fighters who had first defended Earth. They had evolved into something beyond anything his research had predicted. They were calm, patient, and absolutely deadly. "I have to go," he said. "I am probably the last being alive who remembers what we were before we made this mistake. Maybe they need that knowledge for something." As he climbed the bunker's emergency ladder, Kethavar could hear the sounds of systematic destruction echoing through the underground tunnels. The humans were not just conquering Vextra Prime. They were taking it apart piece by piece, learning how everything worked, then rebuilding it to their own specifications. He emerged into the plaza to find it filled with human soldiers. But they were not celebrating their victory. They worked with quiet efficiency, cataloging consortium technology and studying the architecture of the fallen city. They treated the conquest of the galaxy's greatest civilization like a research project. Commander Dongwu stood in the center of the plaza, a compact man whose dark eyes held depths that made veteran warriors look away. When he saw Kethavar, he nodded respectfully. "You tried to warn them," the human said in perfect consortium dialect. "Your research was accurate. We found your original reports in the council archives." Kethavar looked around at the ruins of his homeworld. "I knew this would happen, but no one would listen. Your people saw us as primitive farmers and tool makers," Dongwu said. "They could not imagine that we might be something else when threatened. They woke up something that had been sleeping for a very long time." Above them, human ships continued their methodical work, dismantling the remains of consortium technology and incorporating the useful parts into their own systems. They were not just conquerors. They were perfect students, learning everything there was to know about their defeated enemies. "What happens now?" Kethavar asked. Commander Dongwu looked up at the burning sky, where human vessels were already preparing to jump to the next consortium world. "Now we finish what your people started. and we make sure no one ever threatens Earth again." Kethvar stood alone, in the ruins of what had once been the greatest city in the galaxy. The crystal spires of Extra Prime lay shattered around him, their light forever dimmed. 8 months had passed since the human ships first appeared in Earth's sky, and now he was the only member of his species still alive. The human who approached him moved with quiet confidence. His name was Dae-hyun, and he wore the simple uniform of Earth's new galactic government. He looked young by human standards, but his eyes held the weight of someone who had seen civilizations fall. "You are the last one," Dae-hyun said, speaking in Kethvar's native language. The human's pronunciation was perfect, which no longer surprised the alien scientist. Humans seemed to learn everything with impossible speed. "Yes," Kethvar replied, his voice barely a whisper. "The last of the consortium, the last who remembers what we were before we attacked your world." Around them, human workers moved through the ruins with methodical precision. They were not destroying what remained of consortium civilization. They were studying it, cataloging it, learning from it. Even in victory, the humans continued to adapt and improve. "We found your original research," Dae-hyun continued, pulling out a data tablet that displayed Kethvar's warnings to the council. "You tried to stop this war before it started." Kethvar looked at his old work, the desperate calculations and predictions that no one had believed. "I knew what you were, what you could become if threatened, but my people only saw your surface. They thought you were weak." "We were not weak," Dae-hyun said quietly. "We were sleeping. There is a difference." The human gestured toward the horizon, where construction crews were building something new from the wreckage of the old city. Human engineering mixed with the best parts of consortium technology, creating structures that were both beautiful and impossibly strong. "Your people forced us to wake up. They made us become something we had tried to leave behind in our own history." Kethvar had studied human history during the war, trying to understand his enemies. What he found had terrified him more than any weapon. Humans had always been this way, adaptive, relentless, capable of incredible growth when faced with existential threats. Their own planet was covered with the ruins of species and civilizations that had underestimated them. "What will you do with me?" Kethvar asked. "I am the last witness to your transformation." Dae-hyun was quiet for a long moment, watching the human workers in the distance. They moved with the same efficient calm that had marked every human action since the war began. No wasted motion, no unnecessary cruelty, just perfect execution of their plans. "You will live," the human finally said. "You will travel to the edges of known space, to the worlds that have not yet heard what happened here. You will tell them the story of what occurs when someone attacks humanity's home." The alien scientist felt a chill run through his body. "You want me to be a warning." "You will tell them about the Galactic Consortium," Dae-hyun continued. "How it ruled 1,000 worlds for a millennium. How it had technology that could destroy stars and fleets that darkened entire systems. And you will tell them how it all ended in 8 months because they underestimated a species that had not even left its own solar system." Kethvar looked around at the ruins again. In the distance, he could see human ships preparing to depart for other worlds. Not to conquer, but to ensure that the scattered remnants of consortium forces could never threaten anyone again. "They will ask how you defeated us so completely," he said. "And you will tell them the truth," Dae-hyun replied. "That we learned from every attack, adapted to every strategy, and became stronger with each victory. That we turned your own greatest strength, your advanced technology, into our advantage by understanding it better than you did." A transport ship landed nearby, its engines humming with a sound that mixed human engineering with alien physics. Human scientists had taken the best ideas from a dozen different species and combined them into something entirely new. "The ship will take you wherever you want to go," Dae-hyun said. "You have enough supplies to last several years. When you meet other species, when they ask about the empty space where the consortium used to be, you will tell them what you witnessed." Kethvar began walking toward the transport, then stopped and turned back. "What are you now? What have you become?" The human's expression was calm, but there was something beneath it that reminded Kethvar why his species no longer existed. We are what your people made us. We are the reason no one will ever again mistake our desire for peace as a sign of weakness. As the transport lifted off, carrying the last witness to humanity's awakening, Kethvar looked down at the world below. Human cities were already rising from the ruins of consortium civilization, but they were different from anything that had come before. They were built by a species that had learned the hardest lesson in the galaxy, that sometimes survival required becoming something terrible. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying its lone passenger toward the outer rim of known space. Kethvar would spend the rest of his life traveling from world to world, telling the same story over and over again. Never threaten humanity's home. Never mistake their kindness for weakness. And never ever wake them up. Because once awakened, they would never sleep again.